The morning the police showed up at my ranch because of three wooden signs, I remember standing on my porch with a cup of coffee thinking, well, this is either going to be funny or it's going to ruin someone's life. Turned out it did both. And the strange part is, if Shirley Walsh had just ignored those signs, three simple boards that said private property, Barnett Ranch, none of what happened after would have happened. No lawsuits, no police, no courtroom meltdowns, and definitely no moment where the entire neighborhood realized the man they tried to push out had quietly ended up owning the land under their feet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Lucas Barnett. I'm 42, a single dad, and until a few months ago, I lived a pretty ordinary life fixing engines in my repair shop in town. Then my grandfather passed away and left me his ranch. Barnett Ranch sat just outside a neat little development called Meadows, one of those quiet suburban places with tidy lawns, matching mailboxes, and an HOA that believed rules were the glue holding civilization together. My grandfather had always hated HOAs. Said people who liked controlling their neighbors too much shouldn't be trusted with clipboards. So when Meadows was built back in the 60s, he sold the developers most of the surrounding land. But he kept two things: the ranch and the access road leading to it. He made sure that road never belonged to the HOA. At the time, it probably looked like stubbornness. Later, I realized it was wisdom. Julia and I moved in on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Julia's 8, bright kid, curious about everything. The next morning, we were eating breakfast when we heard sirens coming up the road. Two police cruisers rolled in like someone had reported a bank robbery. And stepping out behind them was a tiny woman in a coral blazer with the energy of a tornado in heels. Shirley Walsh, president of the Meadows HOA. She pointed at the wooden signs I'd put up the night before. "Officers," she yelled, "those signs are destroying our community values." One of the cops, Martinez, looked at the signs, then at me. "Sir, are these yours?" "Yes, officer." They were simple boards. Nothing fancy. Just a reminder that the road was private property. Martinez nodded and asked to see my deeds. I showed him 60 years of paperwork proving the road belonged to my family. He handed the papers back and shrugged. "Ma'am, he's allowed to mark his own property." Shirley's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "But it affects the neighborhood." Martinez just tipped his hat and got back in the cruiser. As they left, Shirley leaned close enough that I could smell her perfume. "This isn't over, Mr. Barnett." I believed her. That afternoon, my friend Travis showed up with a six-pack. "You're famous," he laughed. Apparently, the neighborhood group chat was exploding about my aggressive signage. That night, Shirley emailed me threatening lawsuits if I didn't remove the signs. I almost ignored it. But the next evening, someone spray-painted "Go Away" across one of them. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't about signs. This was about control. A few days later, an elderly neighbor named Evelyn stopped me at the grocery store. She leaned close and whispered like we were discussing state secrets. "Lucas, Shirley's not angry about the signs. She wants her land." She told me about other families Shirley had pressured over the years. Fines, harassment, legal threats. Eventually, they'd sell their property cheap, usually to someone connected to Shirley. A real estate trick using HOA rules as weapons. That night, I went through my grandfather's old papers. Buried in the back of a drawer was a letter addressed to me. The paper was yellowed with age. Inside, he wrote something that made my hands tremble. "Lucas, if you're reading this, remember something. The road is worth more than it looks. One day, someone will try to take it. Don't let them." I didn't know what he meant yet, but I soon would. A week later, Shirley called an emergency HOA meeting. The room was packed with residents. She stood at the front with a projector showing pictures of my signs like they were evidence in a murder trial. Then she dropped the lie. She claimed the road belonged to the HOA, and I owed 15 years of maintenance fees. People started murmuring. I stood up and calmly placed my documents on the table. Original deeds, tax records, survey maps. Before Shirley could interrupt, an old woman in the back raised her hand. "I remember when Lucas's grandfather built that road," she said quietly. "The HOA tried claiming it once before. They lost. Shirley forced a vote anyway. $5,000 fine. It barely passed. After that, the situation turned ugly. Rumors spread, that I ran illegal businesses. Customers started canceling repairs. Julia came home from school one day, looking upset. Some kids said their parents think you're a bad person. Hearing that from your kid, that does something to you. Not anger. Something colder. That's when Shirley crossed the final line. One foggy morning, Julia and I were driving to school when my truck slammed to a stop. Concrete barriers blocked my road. We skidded sideways toward a ditch. Julia screamed. We stopped inches from crashing. Construction workers stood nearby, unloading more barriers. Their work order was signed by Shirley. The police arrived quickly. The sergeant looked at my dashcam footage and ordered the barriers removed immediately. When Shirley arrived yelling about community safety, he shut her down fast. "Ma'am," he said, "you nearly caused a fatal accident involving a child." Watching her face collapse was strange. For a moment, she didn't look angry. She looked desperate. That night, more pieces of the puzzle appeared. Shirley's own son, Brad, told me she'd become obsessed with my land after her husband died years earlier. She kept documents, maps, theories, like she was chasing something. Eventually, I discovered what it was. A planned state highway expansion. If someone controlled access roads around Meadows, they could gain leverage when the state bought nearby land. Millions of dollars were at stake. Shirley wanted my road. Without it, her plan collapsed. So she escalated again. Lawsuits, fake evidence, even accusing me of murdering her husband 15 years earlier. The police dismissed it immediately. But that was the moment I decided the fight needed to end. Not with anger, with truth. I hired a surveyor, investigated old land records, and discovered something my grandfather had quietly built into the property deeds decades ago. A reverter clause. When he sold land for the Meadows development in 1962, he included one condition. If the HOA ever attempted to fraudulently claim the Barnett Access Road or interfere with ranch property, ownership of all HOA common land would revert back to the Barnett estate. Pool, clubhouse, parks, everything. When Shirley tried filing fake ownership claims at the courthouse, I walked in with the original deeds. But I brought another surprise, too. Over the past week, I had purchased several neighboring properties whose only access was my road. Those purchases triggered the clause. The moment the HOA violated the agreement, the land reverted. I still remember the silence in the courthouse when the clerk finished reading. Shirley's face drained of color. "No," she whispered. Travis leaned over and muttered, "Lucas, you just bought the neighborhood." In that moment, Shirley didn't look powerful anymore. She looked tired, broken. Her son handed her a letter their father had written before he died. Apparently, he'd wanted to stop the land fight years ago. Wanted peace. Watching Shirley read that letter, I saw the anger disappear. All that remained was grief. She signed the legal agreements quietly after that. Fraud charges, resignation, a rental agreement for the house she once ruled from. The HOA collapsed soon after. Residents formed a new community board with simpler rules. Neighbors started talking again. Kids played outside again. 6 months later, Meadows felt like a real neighborhood instead of a courtroom. Sometimes I stand on the porch watching Julia ride her bike down the road. Those same wooden signs still stand there. A little faded now, but still doing exactly what they were meant to do. Protect what matters. And a strange thing is the lesson my grandfather tried to leave me wasn't really about land. It was about something simpler. People who chase power long enough often lose the things that actually mattered in the first place. Family, peace, time. Shirley spent years trying to take something from us. In the end, she lost almost everything. And the irony? The highway project she fought so hard for got canceled. All that destruction for a deal that never even existed anymore. Life has a funny way of settling its own accounts. Sometimes karma doesn't arrive with thunder. Sometimes it just stands quietly at the edge of the road, on 3 old wooden signs. But I still wonder about something. If you were in my place, after everything Shirley did, the lies, the threats, the danger she caused for my daughter, would you have shown mercy like I did? Or would you have taken revenge? I'm honestly curious. Tell me what you would have done, and if you've ever had a neighbor or HOA situation that went completely out of control.